Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to tell a story, how I learned about self-care by being trampled by a horse. And I really think that in the conversation around, building a business, being a coach or a healer, um, running our own businesses, that the conversation around self-care, I don't think is elevated enough. And I had a real sort of wake up call about 3 years ago when I got trampled, and I'm being revisited around the importance of self-care in our health as well. So I wanted to really delve into it because I think that this is a conversation that's not, we don't have it all the time and we don't sort of underscore the importance of this. So if you are an entrepreneur, a coach, a healer, a leader, you're building a big business, or you're facilitating, or you hold space for, your work, and you're having issues around depletion or burnout, or you're sort of in this self-sacrifice mode, listen to the length of this video. So to sort of set the stage and kind of paint the picture, I bought my dream property, 80-acre retreat center. I'm sitting here right now, my backyard, when I was 32 years old, and this was my dream. And I have been pursuing this end goal, dream destination for a while. I'm a coach, so I have a practice. I also run retreats. I run a retreat center. So there's multiple things that I do, and I have a herd of 28 horses. So there's a lot that I have to hold space for in my life. And I was typically somebody where I would classify myself as I was a workhorse. I did not take time out. Self-care and sort of self-nourishment was not at the top of my agenda. I think even, using the example of when I do chores and I feed all my animals and I'm like the last to feed myself, I felt a lot of guilt around, taking time for me. So I just, thinking about nourishing myself and self-care was just not something that was a priority. And in fact, was probably something that created a lot of resistance and fear in me. So I just didn't create space for it. And so what started to happen is I went into adrenal fatigue, burnt out, depression, really bad mental and emotional state, because I just was, my system was really overworked. And I'd been getting sort of these messages for myself that I needed to take a rest. And my interpretation of that was once a year, I go to Vancouver Island for 5 days, and that's my break. And I don't really take time off the rest of the year because I had this track of I can't afford to. And so it took me getting trampled by one of my horses, which I think was sort of a, knock on the head and a wake up call from the universe. I'm very lucky that I walked away from that with a broken collarbone and nothing else. I think I could have gotten killed or head injury or my spine. So in relative or to what it could have been, I got off pretty easy. I did get a broken collarbone and I was forced rest for 2 weeks. And it was really illuminating for me of kind of this wake up call of, I'm really getting that if I continue to operate this way, it's going to kill me. And I wasn't enjoying myself. My purpose didn't feel fulfilling. I was burnt out. My whole state of being was just not good. And so there was a bit of a place of, lack of congruency and misalignment, because, here I am coaching people about something and I'm really not living it. And so I realized that had to be a turning point for me of I have to treat myself differently and I have to make self-care a priority. And I will say that this is the hardest thing in the world that I've had to do. It's still something I practice. Easy things for me right now that I sort of catch that is to just that reframe of when I don't take care of myself, I do not have the energy to support my purpose or my clients or my horses. So we have to really sort of make that connection in our brain that the depletion of ourselves or the sacrifice of ourselves or the neglect of our own space is actually creating the opposite of what we want. And so some of that, a little bit of, I can't afford to take time off, which I was a solopreneur with a lot of responsibility. And that was sort of my train of thought of, I just can't afford it. I can't take time off. You know, who's going to run the farm and who's going to coach my clients, and how am I going to make money if I take time for me? So I really, really resisted that. And so I had to start with that reframe. If I do not take care of myself, I don't take care of anything else. And so I had to start to build in that intention that I come first. And so what that looked like was intentionally scheduling time off for myself. And I sort of look at, we all have what that looks like for us. I don't think there's a one size fits all of, you know, what does my self-care practice look like? For me, you know, example, I take Fridays off from calls. I only do coaching calls bi-weekly so that I have a week off from calling and coaching. Those are sort of the weeks where I do sort of content creation. I'm really conscious of, you know, before I would sort of run back to back to back retreats, I usually have, you know, two or 3 days in between retreats if I'm running retreats, so I can replenish myself. I take quarterly time away, whether it's a weekend at a cabin or, you know, going somewhere close by. So I'm really packaging that in to my year. I do things for myself, you know, like acupuncture or going for floats or, you know, taking an afternoon off and sitting in the field. So there's a lot of little different things that can happen, getting good sleep. The most recent thing, and this is sort of why I brought this up again, I recently went to see a nutritionist and a health coach of what should I be feeding my body. And I will say that that was a huge game changer for me as well, because I'm still recovering from adrenal fatigue, you know, 3 years ago. So I'm really putting that intention of my health and my energy and my own self-nourishment as a priority, and it's essential. I don't run my business. I don't take care of my horses. I'm not in congruency. I don't have integrity in my work if I don't make this a priority. And, you know, I think the other thing, and I was speaking to a colleague of mine this week, I used to get really exhausted, you know, coaching. I would almost sometimes have to really fight not falling asleep on a phone call, or when I was in the middle of retreat, like the afternoon, I would just get really exhausted. So my capacity to hold space for my work was really limited. And so turning this around for myself has allowed me also to expand where I can take on more clients. I have 2 retreats coming up where I'm hosting 15 people in a retreat. And, you know, a year ago, that would have been like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to pull that off. So it's not just that I have a better quality of life, but my business and, you know, my clients and everything can actually flourish in a different way. And I'm actually more profitable. So that was the big thing for me of like, you know, this whole thing about making money is tied into how hard I work. And when I was sort of in that workhorse mode, and I was stressing myself and I was working a lot and I wasn't taking time off, and by the way, that drove me into a really fear-based place in myself, because mentally and emotionally, I just was exhausted. So I couldn't hold space for myself the same way. So I lived a lot in scarcity and fear. It didn't really make me more money. And actually, it's been the opposite. As I've tended to myself, it's created more opportunity for abundance in my business. So it is a reframe. And I've had to work a lot at that reframe. You know, it's not sort of a natural tendency for me, but I've seen the byproduct of it. And I really do believe, and why I wanted to do a video about it, is that we don't put enough emphasis on our self-care. I work a lot with women in my work. Empaths, highly sensitive. We care a lot about our work. We do not think of ourselves, and we do not create that space for self-care and for creating space for ourselves and for self-nourishment. It does not become part of the conversation. And what happens is, you know, not just what I've seen in myself, I've seen in my clients, we end up in burnout and depletion, resentment. We don't want to run a business anymore. We're exhausted. We're tired. We don't have access to our creativity. You know, there's a lot of different things that get sort of blocked when we don't nourish ourselves or we don't have self-care as a priority. And so part of a lot of the work when I'm working with my clients is we look at this and we look at you are the vessel of your business and your purpose and your practice, and the depletion of your vessel is really not creating the outcome that you want. And our own quality of life is shitty. You know, I remember a really big kind of illuminator for me too was I reached my destination. I bought the 80-acre retreat center. I have very impactful work. I'm living my purpose, and I am depressed. And that was a real kind of like, it really messed me up, because it was like, so this isn't the thing. Living my purpose in a big way and going for my dreams isn't giving me the quality of life that I need. I'm depressed. I was depressed. And I realized that I had to nourish myself. And that was a piece of, it's not just about my purpose and the expenditure and the service. I have to care for me. And so, um, up leveling, if that's the word I'm looking for, the quality of my own life has made it so I can enjoy my purpose, and it doesn't deplete me, and it doesn't burden me. And it is not the thing that pulls me into depression. So that was something that was like, oh, I have to look at this. Getting trampled by my horse was, again, this sort of really big wake up call of, my life is on the line here. And that's a really important thing that we have to think about. So I really, really make self-care, self-nourishment, my own space a priority. And sometimes I have to battle that guilt of, I should be working, but my energy really wants to just take a time out. And so I take a time out. And so that's a little bit of, how do we do that? Because I know for me, the first part of it, when this is all happening, is I don't even know how to take care of myself. That's a very foreign concept for me. So I really had to listen, what does my energy need? What does my body need? If I just ask that question to myself, what do you need right now? And that was a question I prompted a woman in one of my groups, where she was saying, she feels empty. I said, forget about what your business needs. What do you need? And then I listen. And sometimes it was like, I need to sit on the couch and read my fantasy novels, or I need to change my diet, or I need to change the exercise I'm doing, or I need to spend the afternoon sitting in the field with my horses, or I really need to go book a half day at the spa. We all have different ways that we get nourished. I don't think there is a one size fits all, but it becomes the intention. I used to do coaching calls at 7 a.m. when I got up, because it was like, I have to accommodate my clients' needs. And now it is, what does my morning routine need to look like that feels supportive for me? So it just becomes a different space of intention. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, Hillary, this is nothing new, I really, really want you to get this, because it's really, really important. It's not worth the sacrifice of ourselves, our quality of life, and everything that maybe you're running on fumes because you think that's going to be the shortest distance to create your success is not true. You know how to take care of yourself. We just have to wake that pathway up. So think about, sit with that. Where am I not tending to my needs? What do I need right now? What's the care that I need? And listen to your body and your energy. What feels like the most supportive schedule for me to create for myself? I've completely changed my entire schedule of how I operate in my business, because the way that I was working wasn't working for me. I used to do calls with clients 5 days a week, every week. I don't do that anymore. I've changed a lot from majority one-on-one practice to small groups, because it really creates more efficiency of my time. I have my own rhythms in terms of when do I need a day off. I don't go 5 days on, 2 days off. I have my own rhythm. Usually it's about 9 to 10 days, and then I need, a day. And I also listen to myself of like, what do I need this week? There's things that are my self-care go-tos, movement, having a bath, being out in nature, reading my fantasy novel, believe it or not, kind of gives that to me. There's things that I know that that recharge me. So if you think about what replenishes you, your mindset. When I take care of myself, I have the energy and space and abundance to take care of everything else. Self-care creates abundance in my life. Create the belief systems that are going to empower your self-care. And it's really, we don't have the ability and capacity to do the work we want to do in the world if we don't tend to our vessel. Like it's just a non-negotiable. So wherever you needed to hear this, don't wait. For me, I had a pattern, not just getting trampled by a horse, but that was probably the third time I ended up in hospital before I really listened to how I was working. And that reminded me of, oh my God, I have this default pattern as a workhorse, and I literally don't stop until I end up in the hospital, because that feels like maybe that's a valid excuse for me to stop. So I had to change that pattern, because also I didn't want to kill myself for my work. I didn't want to be depressed anymore. I didn't want to be burnt out. That's not the quality of life that I want to have for myself. So you can change it. And I would sort of recommend, if this is sort of a new concept for you, start small. What are the small things that I can do for myself right now? You know, what does that look like? You know, is it going to bed earlier? Is it changing something in my diet? That's very simple. And I'm not a nutrition expert, but I will say, educating myself and hiring somebody to help with my health and nutrition has been absolutely life-changing for me in a lot of ways. Where do I get replenishment? You know, just sitting with that question. Where can I create more space for myself? Does my schedule need to change? So think about those things and think about it through the lens of what feels supportive for you. Not about accommodating other people, but how do I support myself? Because when we support ourselves, we support everything else. So that was my nudge to you to take that in and to be with it. And then if this sort of resonates or you need a little bit of support around things, I talk about this type of stuff or creating a bit more intuitively and aligned to ourselves in some of the pieces that I write, you know, both on my Instagram and on my Facebook. So if you want to kind of sit with that energy a little bit more, please feel free to follow me. Otherwise, wherever this landed for you, if this resonates for you, really think about where you can integrate that. You know, I think listening to wisdom is one thing, pulling it into ourselves and then doing something with it is another. And take it from me, it is not worth it to continue the space of self-sacrifice. It really isn't. So wishing you a space of self-care. Thank you for joining me again today, and I hope to see you again on the next video.